Okay, in the last session, we talked about mystery of consciousness, where in the end we did see some evidences supporting consciousness, the model of consciousness. The mind was different from brain, and so one of the evidence that was shared was evidence of reincarnation, and the other one was near-death experience or out-of-body experience. So I thought I'll make a continuation of last presentation, and in this presentation we are going to see whether so there are different several stories of reincarnation. If you go to YouTube and anywhere else, you'll see several stories. And so we actually, when we see those stories and those events or evidences, we sometimes doubt whether these are real or whether they are made up. So I will, in this presentation, I will take the reincarnation topic from a scientific perspective, and I will also quote some of the findings from some of the leading scientists in this field, primarily being Ian Stevenson. He's a PhD. He was a PhD and chief psychiatrist in University of Virginia. He unfortunately he passed away in 2007, and he spent more than 40 years doing research on this field. So let me go in. Okay, here is his picture, Dr. Evan Stevenson. So I have taken references from, so he's published many books and many research papers. So I have taken references from birthmarks, birth defects corresponding to wounds on deceased persons. So this is a journal published in 1993, then reincarnation and biology, then 20 cases suggestive of reincarnation. Then there are other people, Jim Tucker. He's kind of of he's currently in also in Virginia. Life, so he's published Life Before Life and several other. There are many other researchers who have published these events. So primarily, Dr. Ian had undertaken more than 2,500 cases internationally, which means he has covered. Uh, Initially, he got many cases from Southeast Asia, Colombia, India, Burma, all these countries, and then later on he also researched or investigated issues from Europe, Lebanon, United States of America, and several other places. So his model is what he used to do is whenever he used to get any information about any reincarnation stories or any information about a boy claiming about reincarnation, that he was such and such in last life, and he's claiming that he remembers his past life. So Dr. Ian used to personally travel to these places and do investigate these occurrences, wherein he used to investigate in the manner parallel to criminal investigations, or the like lawyers do it. You take basically he used to take statements from uh, different people, even from subjects who were the main subject who reincarnated and their parents, and then he used to verify all these information, cross-verify, cross-examine, along with some proof and evidences if there are. And he used to physically travel to and relate to the parents of the previous incarnation. So, if you are more interested in knowing how he conducted his research and whether he has put up all facts and how he has accumulated all the facts, you can go to these books and research papers. And it's not possible to present everything that he did in 40 years of his lifetime in this small presentation. So I will just go through some chief ones. Okay. So some of the findings from his research is generally, when a child, very few, maybe very few cases, people or children used to have recollection or memories of last life. It's generally people don't remember, like myself and others, they don't remember what happened in the last life, whether we had any previous life at all. But there are some cases where people remembered and they started. Generally, it is observed that they will talk about it only starting from as soon as when they start to talk or they learn a language, right? So maybe 2 years to 5 years. That's the age when children start talking about their last life. Um, and some of the findings as per the research is when they claim I was such and such person from such and such place from such and such time, they generally used to give details of all the relatives, friends, and when they were taken to that place, they were able to recognize those people. It was also noticed that most of the cases, the face structure and in some cases, the face structure was exactly same. It was like a replica. In some cases, the structure of the bone, the jaw, and skull remained same, but there were little bit differences in maybe nose, ears, and so some of the parts of the face which are not governed by skeletal system. It was also observed that there were similarities in handwriting. In some cases, the people from the past and the present had exactly same handwriting. Then their likes, dislikes, emotions, everything they matched. And then it was also observed that some people who had phobia of things, like if somebody died of drowning, then he would have a strong phobia of water, or somebody would have phobia of height or fast driving. So these are some examples. And then these people, when they claim to be reincarnation of a previous person, they used to narrate details like phone numbers, addresses, and specific details which was only known to that person, or maybe one more person, like husband or a partner or somebody. So those kind of details they used to give. And also it was observed that out of many reincarnation, um, there were few cases where the child had birthmarks, and those birthmarks actually corresponded to a wound in previous lifetime, and it was found at the exactly same location in the body as the wound was. So we'll study that also today. Then detailed knowledge of things. For example, I talked about it briefly. So last time, so there was one child. I will study that case as well. So that child had a detailed information about warplanes, different parts of it, and names of different warplanes, and which a normal child of 2 years, 3 years old would not have any information. Even adults would not know many of these details. So that was also observed. Then in some cases, the children, they spoke foreign language, which no one else in their community understood or knew. So how did they learn this foreign language? And then they used to give some cases, children used to give no, in almost all cases, they used to give a precise time, cause, and place of death. And in some cases, these details actually led to some investigation. For example, if in previous lifetime a person was murdered by someone, and in some cases, body was hidden, dumped somewhere. Then this reincarnated boy comes and he tells, okay, my body from previous life is lying here, something like that. So these are the facts that were observed. And as I said, these researchers, they personally traveled and they investigated, they cross questioned, and not once, but so if they met a person, a boy, today, and then they actually ask the same type of questions in isolation to every relative or every friend, every acquaintance, or even people who lived in the surrounding areas, and then they cross question whether, because the fact, when it is a truth, then two people will talk about the same fact or truth in the same manner, right? You cannot have contradiction. So that was verified. And then you again, these researchers used to keep coming back. Let's say you spoke to a boy today, and you again come back after 4 years, 5 years to see whether is there any change in findings. So whether is he persistent enough? Because after many years, people tend to forget what did I say last time. So you want to do cross questioning. So various methods of investigations were employed, and after these investigations only, these after verifications only, these research and these books were published. So there were about thousands and thousands of cases, out of which not all of them were verified, because it's a very time-consuming process. You have to go travel and investigate several times. You have to travel there. It's a very tedious process, but we'll take some of these cases where it really was verified. Okay, so this is, I'm sorry, I put a lot of details here, but if you look at the picture, this Hanan Mansour is a lady who was born in Lebanon in mid 1930s. So she had two daughters, Layla and Galere. So this lady, in her 30s, doctor told her that, don't try for a third child because you will have some health problems. So, but she did not listen. So she had a third child in 1962. A son was born, and after that she had a deteriorated health problem, and she had some heart problem starting from 1963. So she traveled to, at that time she was 36 years, and she traveled to Virginia in United States to get a heart surgery done. And before the surgery, she actually tried to call on telephone, call her daughter Leila, um, but she couldn't. But she couldn't get the line through. And after the surgery, Hanan was, unfortunately, she died after the surgery. So once she died, 10 days after her death, Suzanne Ganem was born, and she was born. Um, did I miss that? Okay, so I don't know. I may not have put it here. So another lady, basically the mother of Suzanne Gaham, she had a dream and in that dream, this lady Hanan had come and told her that I will come to you as your daughter. So yeah, here it is. Mother had a dream that she would have a child that had an appearance of. So she very well knew. Her mother very well knew, and when she was born, she knew that this lady had come in my dreams. So at about 16 months of age, so when she was a small child, Suzanne used to pull up a phone and she was trying to call, like children do generally, mimic parents in calling someone. But this time it was not a mimic, but she was actually trying to call her child, her daughter Leila. and she used to talk to her fictitiously. Obviously, she didn't have a facility probably to call, or other details were not known, I guess. But she used to do that as a 16-month-old child. Um, so as she grew, she obviously she mentioned about her children, about her husband, Farouk, and names of parents, brothers, all these names and place everywhere, everything. So, um, and also there's one secret, which was Suzanne also knew that Hanan, before her surgery, she had given her jewelries or jewels to her brother Hercule in Virginia, and she had told him to distribute whatever jewels she had, to distribute them amongst her daughters. And this was just a personal incident, and no one else had any knowledge of this dialogue or this conversation. When Suzanne she grew up, she talked about all of these details. She even remembered phone number of her husband, later on when her mother was very curious, and they found out that this lady, Hanan, was had actually died several years ago, in Lebanon. Sorry, she died in Virginia, but she was living in Lebanon and she had relatives. So they went there. They all met these relatives, and there were so many exchanges. She recognized how all her relatives, um, and even the phone number was verified. So this is one scenario. And if you look at the pictures here, you see the face is almost exactly the same. The structure of the jaws, and the gap between the lips and the jaw, almost even the nose. You can't really say whether it's two different people. I think it's almost same. Okay, so this is one case which was studied by Dr. Ian Stevenson. Now let's look at another case. This person, Rashid Khadeg, I'm sorry if I mispronounced. He was an auto mechanic. So this is the new person. This is the reborn person, and he is holding a picture of his previous incarnation. You can see, although it's kind of small, but you can still see that this face and this face, they both resemble each other. So this person was a auto mechanic, and he lived in a town known as Farmata, right? It's starts with Kfarmatta, but it's pronounced as Farmata in Lebanon. So he was born in 1943. Then what happened was he was driving a car with his friend Ibrahim, and his friend actually did speed up, and eventually the car met with an accident. And this person, Rashid, actually was thrown out of the car, and he landed with the head down, and he died instantly. And there were he recollects that there were few people saying, "Oh, don't bother." So people came to rescue this guy Rashid, but they said, "Don't bother about him. He's already dead." So he was able to hear these conversations while he was lying there dead. Okay, so when he was born again over a year later. Daniel Jurdi was born. So this person, Daniel Jurdi, is this person here. He was born, and his father was Yusuf Jurdi, and his mother was Latife. So, as soon as Daniel started speaking, his first word was Ibrahim. That's the friend with whom he was riding, and he met an accident. And then he told about, at 2 years of age, he told his mother that he wants to go home. This is not his home. And he also told that this is not my father. My father is actually my father has died, because in his previous incarnation his father had really died. So, and he didn't call his father as daddy. He called him by his name, Yusuf. So at 2.5 years of age, at a family picnic, somebody talked about this town called uh, Fermata, and he mispronounced it. So Daniel actually he intervened and he corrected that person that this is how you pronounce this town. So everybody asked, how did he know? So he said, I am from Fermata. So then once Daniel was driving with his mother in uh, Beirut. I think this is the place where we had a huge some explosion few weeks ago, right? You remember, if you remember. So they were driving this place and they passed by a sea in Mediterranean Sea, and they passed by a military beach. That is the beach where he actually had met with an accident. So when they passed by that beach, Daniel was very nervous and he shut his eyes, and then he was hiding his face and he started crying. This is the place where I died. Don't go, don't go there, and don't drive fast. He was very scared of fast driving. So when they went there, obviously he knew about his parents, his address, everything. So they went there, and they Daniel was able to recognize his sister, his past life friends, Ibrahim, Jijad, and also because Rashid used to love bananas, so he also had a good taste for banana. Daniel had a phobia of speeding cars, obviously because that's how he died. So he had a great trauma. Then Daniel also had same or similar face structure. So this is second case. Now we'll go to another case. Okay, this is very interesting, and I've put two slides on this one. Um, so James Houston Jr. was a pilot, and he was actually involved in World War II. During World War II, he was involved in a battle, and the place, what's the place called? Um, is written somewhere. Okay, we'll cover that later. So this person, James Houston Jr., he actually had died in 1945 in World War II against, which was fought against Japanese. So James, again, when he was born in 1998, almost about 50 years. So his name again was James, this time James Leninger. So he used to call himself as James 3 because James Jr. So James Senior was his father, and James Jr. was the pilot who died, and then this is third James. So he used to call himself as James Third. So he was born in San Francisco Bay Area in United States, and later on I think they moved to a different place. Um, and he remembered everything. He remembered everything, how he died, and he had a vast information, detailed information or knowledge about fighter jets or fighter planes. So which were used during World War II. So when he turned 2 years of age, James he used to get nightmares, and in his dream he used to cry out loudly, "Aeroplane crash, plane is on fire, plane is on fire, little man cannot get out." This is what he was shouting in many times, repeatedly, many times in his dream. And his father, um, I'm sorry, mother Henry, many times she used to run towards him, and she used to see that James was actually lying down on the back, and he was struggling, and he was kicking and clawing on the covers. Something maybe appeared like he's trapped somewhere in a coffin or something, and then he's trying to push open the gates or the doors. So he was actually he was getting these nightmares about this plane crash, and he was actually stuck in that plane. So he wanted to get out. So that's the dream he's getting. So when Bruce, his father, asked James who shot his plane down, so James said the Japanese. So then they asked, how do you know that it was Japanese? So he said because the Japanese had a very big red dot on the spacecraft. So he said by the big red sun, I know it. Sun. So it's like a shape of a sun, big red. So their parents were actually really puzzled, and he actually had a lot of knowledge about plane, and he also talked about his friend Jack Larson, who was who was also a pilot in the same group. And then okay, he had unusual knowledge about planes. For example, when his mother gifted him a aeroplane from a aeroplane model, a toy. And then it had a small piece that was hanging in the bottom. She said, um, you know, she referred to it as a bomb. So, look, this airplane has a bomb. So James actually corrected her. That's not a bomb, mommy. That's a drop tank. So nobody in his family knew about a drop tank. What a drop tank is basically drop tank is a fuel tank which is under the plane, and it gets ejected or dropped off when the fuel is spent, is exhausted. So this kind of detailed information nobody knew, and he was a very small child, and they say he was not even done potty training. And how does he know so much detail about aeroplanes, drop tank? So over time, James also revealed that he flew a plane called Corsair, and that plane actually took off from a boat, and the boat's name he gave as Natoma. Um, and he had some knowledge about some problems with that plane Corsair, and I don't know. I think I have a picture as well. Let's see. Yeah, this is the plane, and this is the Natoma. This is the um, ship, right? Vessel carrying fighter jets. So, okay, so in addition, he also had information or knowledge about that all these US flyers, they used to give Japanese bombers a girl name and Japanese fighters a boy name. For example, James said that Japanese fighters were called Zekes and bombers were called Bettys. So this is kind of information which only a person who is involved in a navy would know. Nobody else would know. One time when the family was watching a history channel on World War II, in which a corsair were shooting down Japanese planes, the narrator said that the downed Japanese planes were zeros. But the little James corrected that narrator and said it was not zeros, it was called Tonys. So he used to correct in these narrations, and later on they found out the difference between zeros and tonies, which is terminology not common or known to normal people. Um, Also, when they took their son to a flight museum, Lone Star Flight Museum, they were surprised that James was actually around a crosshair and he was conducting a flight check like a pilot normally does before boarding the aircraft they were about to fly. So Andrew was actually very perplexed that even he was not even trained for potty. Um, in foreign countries, people have to train. Even in India, people have to train their babies to go to potty. I mean, in proper place. I mean, just so that you know. Yet he knew details of all the World War II and aircraft of that era, so they were really perplexed. So his father, Bruce, he was a he actually did not believe in reincarnation due to his Christian beliefs. So he actually was skeptical and he was confused. But because of the amount of details given by this small child, he was um, forced to find out and do a research of all the narrations that his child has had given. So so he obtained some books related to aircraft carriers that were engaged in the Pacific Ocean. And when they were flipping the pages, when he lived through it, they actually came to image of Battle of Iwo Jima. That's the battle where this James Jr. had died. So James immediately told his father, "This is the place. This is the place where I died, and my plane was shot down, and it crashed." So little James would draw pictures. He would also draw pictures of battle scenes and different strategies that they were actually employing. And then he would sign his picture as drawing as James 3. He used to also, he had some toys, G.I. Joe toys, and he used to give them some unusual names like Billy, Leon, and Walter. So they never knew anyone by this name. Generally, kids they keep names which they have generally heard of, but this child was naming his toys all strange names. So they asked, why, how do you name them? Where do you get these names from? So he said, these are the people I met when I was going to heaven after death. So and then later on, they found out that Billy, Leon, and Walter, these people were also there in Navy, and their hairstyle or hair color and body structure actually resembled the dolls that he was playing with. Then his father actually found out, he did a deep research and he found out that there were 18 pilots from Natoma Bay, which is the ship that had died, and Houston Jr. was one of them. So James Houston was the only pilot to die in the invasion of Iwo Jima. So he died in 1945. So he pulled up all the records and then he found this name and then he also found Jack Larson, who was his friend, and the Jack Larson, his friend, he was still alive, and he was also a member of Netoma Bay, and then he verified all this information from his friend Jack Larson. Okay, so this is the fourth story. This is very interesting. So this guy Jeff Keen, he was from the recent times, and John B. Gordon was actually at least 1 century old. And if you see the pictures, the face exactly same, exactly, not even resemblance. You can't even say it's just resembling. You say exactly same. So his story is actually goes this way. In 1991, he was actually on a vacation with his wife Anna, and they were actually looking for antiques, and they stopped in a place called Sharpsburg in Maryland, which was actually where a civil war, a battle of Antietam was fought. Antietam, I'm sorry if I pronounced it incorrectly. So at that place, he actually wandered to a road, sunken road, and Jeff was listening to an audio tour on audio cassette about the Civil War that took place in 1862, and there it was a mention of Colonel John B. Gordon. So this guy, he was a colonel, um, and then he went when he passed through that street, that place. Strange kind of emotions actually engulfed him. He was in grief. A wave of grief, sadness, and anger washed over him, and his hair stood on end, and he was shivering. He was not able to breathe, and he had a different kind of emotions because this person is the same person reincarnated, Jeff B. Gordon reincarnated, and in his last life he was a colonel, and he was actually leading an army, and he actually was involved in a battle in that same place where he was standing right now. So he was confused. He didn't have any understanding of why this kind of feeling was going through his body. So um, and he didn't mention about this to his wife. And then while returning from that place, he also bought a magazine, Civil War Quarterly Special Edition, and he bought that magazine, but he never read it, at least for 1 year. But then luckily there was a in one of the Halloween party, there was a psychic who was invited for psychic readings. And in that reading, he asked that psychic about, and he talked about his experience in that sunken road. So that psychic person lady was able to tell him that you experienced this because you were uh, John B. Gordon, and she actually gave him direct clues. So he was actually surprised because he didn't remember all of those happening, but he did have somewhere he had a feeling that I was related. So he went back and then he opened that Civil War Quarterly magazine, and then he read the description of how and what happened. And before that, actually, Psychic was giving some story, telling some story, but then Jeff Keen, he actually corrected her and he shouted, "Not yet." That was the phrase that was called out. So, but he didn't know why this phrase came out. But then when he read the magazine, he later learned that not yet was an order which was given by John B. Gordon to the Sixth Alabama Troop. So the Yankee troops were actually approaching, and the men of the 6th Alabama were waiting anxiously to fire. But they were waiting for them to come closer, um, I think 100 yards. So they were waiting. This guy Gordon actually, the soldiers were actually eager to fire, but Gordon was repeatedly saying, "Not yet, not yet." So that's the phrase that actually stuck in his mind. And when he was reborn as Jeff Keen, he somehow that phrase came out of his mouth. And also, there was description of how this Gordon was wounded. He was hit in his left arm, right shoulder, twice in the right leg before passing out from the loss of blood. So, and then he also checked that he had some body on his body. He had these marks on those places. And then when he saw the picture of Gordon in the magazine, he was shocked because it was exactly same as his own face. He was really shocked. So this is one instance where he didn't remember it in childhood, but when he was an adult, he went through the same place and same circumstance. That's where he started getting emotions and feelings and about what happened. Okay, now I will jump on to some of the other proofs, evidences which are actually based on birthmarks or birth defects found on people who are reincarnated, and these birthmarks actually are related to the wounds of previous incarnation. So, as you can see, this person from India, man named Maharam, right? He was shot in his previous life. He was shot by a shotgun at a close range. You see these white or some pigmented marks on the chest. Um, so these marks. So Dr. Ian Stevenson, he actually went and found out. So obviously he claimed that he was such and such person from last life. So Dr. Ian Stevenson, he went and found out and spoke to the doctor who did post-mortem report of the previous incarnation. And this drawing is actually done by a doctor in his own handwriting, and I think he has also signed it up. So here you can see that they marked previous body. They marked all the places where these wounds were, and they almost within 2 or 3 square centimeters area. It was correlated to the same spot, or the pigmentation where you could see the pigmentation on present day body. So this is one instance, and then some people may say, okay, no, this may happen by chance. Okay, this person is uh, creating or coming up with a story, and he by chance has similar marks on the same place. But then Ian Stevenson has pointed out that there are two or more than two birthmarks on the same person. So when you count two birthmarks, the probability of chance, that it happens by chance, it reduces drastically, because as we say, probability, when you say this and this, then it actually multiplies. So another case, this is a case of a Thai person in Thailand, and he in his last life died due to a severe blow from a sharp knife, a heavy knife on his head. And in that same place in the head, he had this, it's called, I don't know, verrucous epidermal nevus. I don't even know what this means. But in as is shown in the picture, it's you see there's some scar or some cracking of skin. So this was exactly at the same place where he was hit. Now the same person also had a problem with the toe, some infection. So he had this malformation in the nail. Then we they later on found out that this malformation was actually corresponded to chronic ulcer in his right great toe. So two birthmarks on the same person, which actually corresponded to wound from a previous birth. Okay, similarly, there were some other instances where another Thailand boy, you can see this person was actually shot on head with a gun. And as you can see, whenever you shoot anyone with a gun, the entry point where the bullet enters is generally a small hole, but when it exits the body, it splatters, or it actually shatters the skin and mass while going out. So your entry point wound will be a single point, but when it exits, where it exits, you'll have a wider or a larger wound. So as you can see, in this part of his head, he had a small dot where probably hair is not growing and there is a lump or some mark. And then exactly same in the same line, diametrically opposite to this point, there was a big area that corresponds to the bullet exiting. That this person didn't grow any hair in that area, right? So this is double wound. And another case is about a person. This person here is a Turkish boy. He's from Turkey. So when he was in last life, he actually died due to a severe blow with a club or a hammer type of thing. I'm sorry, no, this is a shotgun again, shotgun on the close range. So as you can see, when he take took birth again, his right side of the face or head is actually distorted, and even his ears did not grow or did not form properly. Okay, some more interesting stories. This story is from India. Now this boy, when he was in previous life, he actually, in villages we have a feed cutter, where circular blades which actually cuts the grass for feeding cows and animals. So he accidentally put his hand there, and all of his fingers were chopped in his last life. And when he died, and he took birth again. He was born without any fingers. As you can see, they are cut in a straight line. This is not from previous body. This is from the reincarnated body. The reincarnated body also had the same malformation or birth defect. And as you can see, generally, if it is a genetic problem, then you will have all the three phalanges of the finger, but they are short. But here in this case, you can't see middle and the top phalange. You can only see the bottom phalange, and that is also cut. So this is not a genetic defect. It's basically corresponds to the trauma that this boy went through in the previous life. There's another case where a girl actually was born with her legs cut out because in the last life she died on a railway track, and her legs were the first part that were amputated. That's interesting. The most interesting is this story, this case in Nigeria. In the right hand side, you see this girl is this. She's a girl, and in her past life she was a boy, a man. So she was born like this with a clear straight line mark on the head. It appears as if there was an incision made by a doctor or somewhere, and a bandage was put in here. So later on, they found out that this girl was a man in his previous life, and he ended up he was put up with a fight with some people, and he had a severe blow on his head, because of which his and the doctors had to operate him, and the doctor had to they cut his skull like this in this line, and sew it up to in the effort to save him, but he eventually died. So the name of the person is Nusude Agbo. I'm sorry if I am not pronouncing it properly. And the reincarnated person lady is Jekinta Agbo. Igbo is a tribe in Nigeria, and she was born in 1980, whereas the previous incarnation actually died in 1970. And he was operated in University Hospital in Enugu. So these are the details which were investigated by Ewan Stevenson. We have seen several cases where we had seen that person has reincarnated. So science cannot really explain this in terms of and you see last time we talked about consciousness, and consciousness, whether consciousness is a product of chemical or matter. So science actually cannot explain this, because if the person is taking birth as a fresh person, how is he carrying birthmarks from previous life, which corresponds to wounds? And how are some people or children are able to recollect in detail about all the events that happened in his or her previous lifetime? So now that brings us to a question of whether are we this body or are we something else? Like some people say we are mind, some people say we are soul. We are something. Are we something different from this body? That's the question, right? Because obviously the person is same and he's able to remember. Although he's in a different body, he's able to remember previous lifetime. So, to answer that question, I'll just go to the next slide. And my proposition is that we even change our bodies during this same life. So, if you can see this picture, the first one on the left is also Rahul Dravid, and the middle one is also Rahul Dravid, and the right side is also Rahul Dravid. But no one would recognize these two pictures, because obviously they look different from the right Rahul Dravid as of now, right? So the body has changed, right? Body has changed even in this lifetime. Body has changed, but the person is same. Person is same, which means that person which we are calling the person is different from the body. That's the logic here, and Bhagavad Gita gives that logic. Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yavanam jara तथा देहांतर प्राप्तिर धीरस तत्र न मुह्यति देहिनोस्मिन यथा देहे hmm? Kaumaram Yavanam Jara. Kaumar means childhood, Yavanam youth and old age. Uh, Basically, we are saying as our body changes from childhood to youth to old age. Similarly, after death, we change our body because we keep changing our body even during this lifetime. So how can we say that we won't change our body after this life? So that's the logic here, and this logic is given in Bhagavad Gita, second chapter, 13th verse. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person, dhiras tatra na muyati. Dhira means a sober person. An intelligent, sober person is not bewildered by such a change. If we are getting bewildered, means we don't have that knowledge. So we should not get bewildered. Okay, next slide. So here, Bhagavad Gita in the same second chapter, 22nd verse, it says, Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grinati naroparani tatha sharirani vihaya jirnanya anyani samyati navani dehi. What does it mean? It says that our body is like a garment. When our garments become old, when our clothes become old, we discard old clothes and we put on new clothes. Similarly, when our body is like a garment, when it becomes old and useless, then we quit this body and we take up another body, a new body. So that's what I've tried to show in this picture here. The person is actually changing his body here, and similarly, we are changing our body as we grow from childhood to youth to old age, and then after the body becomes useless and old, we transmigrate into another body. So that's the explanation given in Bhagavad Gita about reincarnation or transmigration.